people don't see that side. There was a lot of cars that I probably should have never gotten into that I did, and I had no idea what I was getting into at all whatsoever. I knew that I was going to need a better backup plan. I wasn't going to be able to race full time. I wasn't going to be able to travel as much. It wasn't always easy. Like, we were scraping up pennies for apartments, and he was living in a camper.
Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Hello everyone, welcome to Dirt Track Confessions. I'm your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney. This evening we have a beautiful guest joining us, Miss Jessica Friesen. So Jess is, I don't even know I can do any due diligence here with all that you have accomplished, but Jess has accomplished dirt modifieds, sprint cars. She's gotten behind the wheel in NASCAR. You know, she runs her own apparel company, which we're totally going to dive into, Onesie Tees. She's the mom of the sweetest boy, Parker. She's a huge advocate for autism awareness, and she, without a single doubt in my mind, is the one who keeps her husband, Stewart Friesen, in line. Let's be real. Yes. But Jess, oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to have you on. What's going on over there? How are you?
I'm good, very good. Busy, but good.
Busy but good. That is the life.
Yeah.
So truthfully, I don't know. I honestly, I was like, where do I even start with Jess? I feel like I know you, but I feel like there's so much that the world just doesn't know about you also. So can you kind of, I'm tossing out here, but can you kind of give us a picture of what life was like growing up for you? You know, I know it's a loaded question, but maybe your background with your family, with racing, your dad racing, that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. So I grew up pretty much at Fonda Speedway. I started going to the racetrack when I was just a couple weeks old. My dad raced growing up, and then I started racing go-karts myself when I was 8. So I was always around the garage, and my dad had a transmission shop as well. So when I was growing up, I was always in the shop, and then the race shop, and at the races, and a tomboy, and had go-karts and four-wheelers, and started racing myself when I was 8, and yeah, just kept going from there.
Okay, so I don't know about you, but for me, I didn't jump behind a car until I was in high school. I kind of knew it wasn't my cup of tea, right? Like, I wanted to be involved in racing, but not behind the wheel. Was your dad like just jump in and do it, or did you ask to do it?
No, not really. I was 3 when I started on snowmobiles, and I was always driving something. Had a field car when I was like 7, and then it wasn't until there was a go-kart at the shop. Like, one of my dad's friends, like, son had a field cart that my dad had to weld something on or fix, and it sat in the shop for like 4 or 5 days. And I'm like, can I take it out? Can I try it? And he's like, no, you're not gonna want to, like, no, why? And I'm like, come on, can I just try it? Like, and I just remember like begging him, and he's like, it's not even ours. And I remember taking it around the house and like doing laps around the house in the grass, and I was probably 7-ish, so I was just a little bit younger than Parker. And then I thought I was like hot shit. I thought I was having so much fun. I'm like, I can do this. Like, why can't I race these? Like, maybe I can start racing. And that was kind of the first time that like I was like, I'd always been around the races like growing up, but I was like in go-karts four-wheelers and snowmobiles. But I remember him getting the hose out on the wet grass, and he's like, oh, you think you're good? Well, let's see how you do now. And then I spun out and got frustrated until I finally figured it out. And so my dad was a little rough on me as far as just like getting in and jumping behind the wheel, and he was always racing himself. So as far as like getting started with go-karts, it was tough because there wasn't really a lot of time for, you know, to learn the go-karts and to get into the whole go-kart scene. But we did, and I don't know if he really thought I was going to stick with it, but he was always very, I'm not saying wasn't supportive, because he was supportive, but he was tough on me, where he wasn't going to give it to me, and I had to figure it out myself and work on it myself. And if I wanted to do it, I was going to have to work at doing it. So that was good, because that's pretty much my whole mentality with everything is, you know, if somebody tells me I can't do it or I'm not going to be good at it, I'm just going to try harder at it and work harder, and kind of a little bit stubborn when it comes to that. And I feel like I definitely got that from my dad, and he, you know, taught me that very early. So, yeah.
You're gonna prove them wrong. You're gonna prove them all wrong. I love that.
That's right.
Okay, so you pretty much start in your backyard, but can you take us through the journey of you with your racing career? You know, how does one go from, karts to sportsmen's to sprint cars to NASCAR, like the truck series? Like it's one of those things, you lived it, but it's incredible. Like the girl from this small town in New York, you have accomplished so much.
I guess I don't really think about it like that. Now, like obviously Stuart is the racer in the family, but I did have like a lot of fun growing up, and I've been able to travel the country racing, and going from go-karts and then getting in my dad's backup sportsman car. I started that at 14 at Fonda Speedway in Utica, Rome, and I won the Utica Rome track championship in the sportsman in 2004, and that's when I met Stuart. And then that's when I got some other opportunities to race a 360 wing car, which is what I've always, like, since I was little and started racing, I always wanted to run sprint cars. They were the fastest, most exciting cars at the track, and my dad had told me, you'll never see one of those in my race shop. And as soon as he told me that, I made sure that was going to happen. And I got some, I had a lot of really good people along the way. Doug Emery and Tom Patterson were my first sprint car ride, and they were great and taught me so much, and just kind of built from there, and ran some 358 modified and some big block stuff, and traveled and had some really crazy jobs. I lived in Arizona, I lived in Phoenix, I lived in California, I actually worked for an underground utilities contracting company, and they'd pick me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would get to go work on the car at night, and I would run I think I was out there for 3 months, and I only got to run 3 races, and the car was older than me, and it was just a nightmare, but it was an experience, and it was just a life building, there was a lot of things that I did along the way that I wondered why, but they were all experiences that, taught me all different things of what not to do, and I had some really good breaks, and I had some really good supporters, and Pack Merchandising came along. I was actually at the racetrack with just my mom at a 360 event at Ashwegan Speedway, and John and Wendy from Pack Merchandising came up, and he had said, why are you at the racetrack with just you and your mom? I'm like, well, we don't really have any help, and I want to race. And he's like, well, we want to help you. I'm like, okay, you want to buy a tire? And he's like, no, I want to do more. And so that was over 12 years ago, and they're still a big supporter even now with my modified, and they've become like family. So I'd had some, traveled a lot, did a lot of crazy things, and met a lot of awesome people that have been great supporters to be able to have the stepping stones, to have the opportunities to do things like the Chili Bowl and 360 and 410 wing sprint cars and dirt modifieds, and then now, like with the truck series, obviously that's all Stuart, and I just got to run the backup truck. So it was an awesome experience and a cool opportunity. So yeah, it's been crazy. It's been fun.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless because it's so hard when it's yourself, right? Like you've lived it, and it's like, okay, but for anyone else, there's people that don't even make it out of their own state. And you've accomplished a lot, and to move around, like you were determined, and I always tell people, it's like, you don't go from point A to point B, like it's like a roller coaster ride. There's roadblocks.
A lot of bad decisions and a lot of really bad race cars that I got behind the wheel of that were like, I needed a tetanus shot to get into, and like, why am I doing this? And there was a lot of experiences that were crazy, and met a lot of great people along the way, like I said, that gave me some great opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so you kind of touched on it. I think you said it was 2004 when you met Stu. Yes?
Yes. He was racing modifieds at Utica Rome when I was running the sportsman, and we both won the first 3 races in a row, and he had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend, and we would see each other at the drivers' meetings, and it was kind of like we started talking, and it was the 4th week of the season, I think it was, and I had my senior prom, and I already had a date, and I was going to the prom, and we were having like a get-together afterwards, and I ditched my prom date and I invited Stuart to this after party. And I remember he was driving from Madsen's at the time. And I remember meeting him by the Canajoharie Thruway exit in his like 1990 Corsica. And I pulled up and he's like, hang on, I got to get my cooler. And he opens the trunk of his car. And I'm like, okay. So he was prepared. He brought his cooler and he came to the after prom party. And after that, that was 20 years ago, and it took us a little bit to figure it out and to iron it out. We were young, and we both had our own, ideas of what we wanted to do and where we were going with our careers. And racing a lot of times took us in different directions, and it took us a long time to grow up and figure it out. That's for sure. But that's where it all started. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I always tell everyone, if it's meant to be, you're going to find your way back to each other. And I love that. And prom, I missed out on prom. I had the dress, I had the date, but I only would go if the race is canceled.
Right. I missed my high school graduation, and I had missed my junior prom, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to the senior, which the prom, but the after party was worth it. And it must have been that, I'll have to ask him what year. I probably should know this. The Corsica is what really got me. The rusted out Corsica that that I picked him up in. That's what got me.
Hey, I joke is that the truck it has not been 20 years, mind you, it's been 8. But when he first picked me up, that truck is currently, I call it our lawn ornament. It is now rusting out, and I'm like, we need to do something about this. But okay, so circle back here. What is it like, because you still do it today, like what is it like racing with your husband?
Not just racing, but everything in our lives, like together from the very beginning, has always been, we're both very competitive people. So there's always the aspect of like being very competitive towards each other, and but we're also on the same team, and we learn a lot from each other, and we are each other's biggest critics. We will be the first person to tell one another what we're doing wrong, or, don't think that was the right adjustment, or that wasn't the right change. And we we do have sometimes at the racetracks full-blown domestics where like we're just yelling at each other about the race car, and like I want something that he thinks I don't need or won't make the car better. But it's funny. So we are very competitive, but we're still on the same team. And at the end of the day, we're still coming home together. And whatever purse money we make is still going into the same account. So he has to share that with me either way. So we are very competitive racing against each other on the track. And I feel like obviously he's very talented, and I have to try much harder than he does as far as worrying about my car being better, because I know that he's just naturally he's just naturally talented. I need my car to be good as well. So I tend to analyze and pick apart the car and make a lot of changes to try to make it better. And sometimes he'll say like, oh, that doesn't need to happen, and then we do make those adjustments, and then it'll be like, oh shit, that actually worked, and that's something we need to do. So sometimes he admits it, but we worked together a lot. When I was pregnant for Parker, Stuart ran my sprint car, and when I had my sprint car team, I did everything from all the motor maintenance to the valves to all of the setup, all the shocks, dynoing the shocks and fueling the engine. And when I got pregnant with Parker, Stuart started driving it, and I had to do everything on the car. And it was funny, I used to joke that it was like he was going to the fair and he'd get his popcorn and he'd just hang out. And I was like pregnant with Parker, like I think I was 7 months pregnant when we won the Outlaw Show out of Schweigen. And so I have to remind him every once in a while that like I actually do know what I'm talking about when it comes to the car and the adjustments. And we do learn a lot from each other. Like I said, we're tough on each other and we're very competitive. But when we're on the racetrack, it's not like I don't normally look if he's passing me or I'm next to him, or I don't say I'm going to take it easy on him or I'm going to get out of the way. The only thing that I would think that we both feel racing against each other is if there's a red or a bad wreck. Like I always try to find out and to make sure he's not in it. I think that's probably the only thing that we would both say.
Absolutely. I can totally see that. I can see it. So I'm thinking like setup car wise, like you said, Stu's a little different than you. You're a little different from him. Like, do you feel you guys set up your cars differently? You drive differently? I mean, how? Because like from Mike to my brother to my dad, them having conversations are like, well, this worked for me, but this worked for me, and I'm like,
yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, there's like a baseline, but when you come to like the fine adjustments, there's definitely things that I like differently than he does, and it's taken us a long time to figure that out. When I went back to modifieds and we got rid of the sprint car stuff after Parker was born, it was a big adjustment for me because I had been racing sprint cars for 10 years and I hadn't been in a modified at all. So I had a lot of bad habits from the sprint car that I needed to break, and a lot of feels that I had from the sprint car that I needed to lose to get back into the modified and be comfortable. So it took us a little while, but there are some differences now, but we kind of have them ironed out, but they're never the right choices. I got to run his car at Port Royal this year, and I qualified good. I'm like, oh, this feels great. Like, all right, I'm actually feel like I'm good. I'm like, Mom's not going to run the penalty box anymore. I'm going to be in your cars. Like, your stuff's way better. Like, I ran way better, qualified way better. And he was in, where was he? He was in Bristol at the truck race, so that's why he couldn't be there. So I got to run for the A team, and he wanted to change the right front shock and the left rear shock to something that he would run, but the left rear shock was something that he had built that he actually hadn't run before. And I went into turn 1 to run 75 laps, and it pushed like a dump truck, and I hardly even made it to turn 2, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long 75 laps. So there are a lot of times that as you can imagine, we had a conversation about that, and after the race, and he's like, what happened? I'm like, why did we change the entire car? So we have that too.
Yeah. So it's great that you mentioned that, because so leading up to this, I had some of our people that follow the podcast, I have them ask some questions like for you, and a lot of them actually asked, which I could assume why, but I'll let you answer, is why don't you race sprint cars anymore?
Well, it's not by choice. Well, we had the sprint car team going still while I was pregnant, and Stuart raced. We won like 12 or 13 races together. We won an outlaw show together. It was like the perfect combination. I was working on the car and he was driving it. But I still wanted to drive, and I got back into 360 at Utica Rome, and Parker was, I want to say he was about 4 months old, and I had a wreck. I was on the outside of somebody, and they slid up into me, and I barrel rolled down the backstretch at Utica Rome, and Stuart freaked out and was like, this can't happen. What if you got hurt? What if, and I'm like, okay, but what if you get hurt? Well, Parker needs his mom more than he needs his dad. And I'm like, not necessarily, so Stuart did run the car a few more times, and we got a really good 410 engine, and he wanted to run some more 410 races, and he had a bad wreck about 2 months later at Lebanon Valley, and the seat broke, and it was really bad. And I'm like, if we can't focus on this and we can't do it full time and we can't do it right, then we can't do it at all, because we're trying to do too much. We're still trying to do like the modified stuff. He's got his modified team. He was trying to do the truck team stuff and then try to do the sprint car stuff on top of it and have a baby. And we had a lot of complications when Parker was young, and we were going to doctor's appointments, and there was so much. And after we both had 2 pretty good wrecks, we decided that we were going to sell the sprint car team and that we would just both race modifieds and then focus on the modifieds and the truck. So 2 seasons ago was the first time that Stuart got back into a sprint car. So then last summer, I did get back into a sprint car for 1 race at Oswego Speedway in a 360. And it was awesome. And of course, I just want to do it again. But at the same time, it goes back to, if you can't do it right, then don't do it at all. So it's all about having the right equipment and having the right people and being in a safe car, and then also knowing who you're racing against, not just jumping in an event that you don't really know who you're racing against. It's not, you have to worry about watching who's in front of you. And so it's still up for discussion quite a bit, and with the high limit coming local and coming to Fonda and Utica, and he got to run last year. So we still he'll tell me oh, I got a ride, I'm gonna run that, and I want to stab his eyes out with a fork, but I'm still happy, and I'm still excited, and I know he loves it, and I love sprint cars, so I go and support him, and it's so I don't run sprint cars because moms don't race sprint cars, I guess.
Says no one. Okay, so
yeah, no, it's really just because if we can't do it right, we just choose to not do it at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of pieces that come together to make a successful sprint car team.
Yeah, so I don't want to go and do it and not do it correctly and not be able to be in the right situation. Yeah.
So it's not off the table forever.
I still get text messages. Actually, yesterday, like I said, John and Wendy from Corpac are local to Oshwegan Speedway, and they run 360s weekly, and that's where I got back in a car last year. And he keeps asking me can we make this happen? Can we get you in a car again? And I'm like, yeah, I would absolutely love to, but there's so many things, so many pieces, so many the equipment, the people, the crew, I don't know that he really understands how much really goes into it. So if the right opportunity came about, for sure. But right now it's not in the cards at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So you're setting me up, girlfriend, because my next question is, how do you choose when you race? Right? Do you have a set schedule, or?
No, I joke that I have to get my permission slip signed. So, no, I don't have a set schedule. Obviously, I would like to race as much as I possibly can. But Stuart is the priority. It's his race team. So, and it's hard not having enough people, not having enough help. We have had a lot of engine issues. So having engines last year, I didn't get to run a lot towards the end of the year because we didn't have another engine that was, good enough, and he needed a backup. So just having all the parts and pieces to be able to do it right, to run two cars, is tough. So I try to run locally, Fonda and Utica. It's close to home, and then obviously Parker is priority. Parker comes first. So actually, this Friday is his first baseball practice, and I plan to race at Utica Rome. And the team that he ended up getting divided and signed up for has practices on Friday nights. And I'm like, oh, this was a debacle this morning. And can we get him on a team that practices midweek so that he can actually play and participate? So I actually called this morning to see if that was possible. And they're like, no, that's against our rules. That would be bending the rules. We already have the teams sorted, and that would be showing favoritism. I'm like, what? So if Parker chooses on Friday that he wants to go to baseball, then mom's not racing. So Parker is priority, and then the t-shirt shop, our business, obviously comes next. And then when there's this little bit of hope that maybe I'll get to race, then I go. Yeah,
I feel like you're such a kick-ass mom that's just chilling over here waiting for can I race today?
Yeah, it's is it my turn yet? Is it, can I go? Can I go? I always feel like a little kid. It's funny, when Stuart's like, well, do you want to race? I'm like, well, obviously I want to race, but there's so many other parts and pieces that go into it, just with Parker and then our business. And then 5 years ago, we put an addition, an in-law suite on our house, and moved in my grandmother, who's 85, who I love to pieces, and I didn't want her to have to go to a nursing home. So we have her full-time and have aides and have that schedule also on top of the other chaos schedules. So it's it always has to be, everything has to align for me to be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So that spot on, because which I knew wasn't going to be an easy feat, is to get you on the podcast, because you are a busy woman. Yeah. But
I kept moving it back. Can you do later and later? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, girlfriend, if we do any later, my body shuts down at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So kind of shine. Obviously, I'm sure every week is different, right? But what would you say quote unquote a normal week looks like for you?
Well, it's hard. It obviously changes constantly. And then there's so many variables, like it's so hard to even have a schedule and plan a schedule because of the weather, or, it's always something comes up, or, the truck shop stuff. So I also do like all of the administration at the truck team, all the payroll stuff for Statesville, for North Carolina, for our team. We have 15 full-time employees there. So I do the payroll, the benefits, the travel, the flights, the hotels, the rental cars, the billing, and it's insane keeping up with that. So it's been about a year and a half that I've been doing all of that, on top of the shirt shop. So in the last week and a half, I've probably printed about 3,500 t-shirts. It's been really busy, and I've been like head down printing t-shirts. So the alarm goes off at 6:15, and it's like just a dumpster fire. It's just chaos. It's just as soon as the alarm goes off, like there's so many things that need to be done in a day that there's never enough time. And then it's just all about prioritizing, what's the most important at that time. And in the screen printing shop, my employee Ivan, luckily he races and he gets it. He races pro stocks at Fonda, and he's great. So he understands like my chaos of like what has to happen and how it changes constantly. He actually said to me, he's like, why don't you have two separate emails, like whether it's the shirt shop stuff or the truck team stuff? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I need to do it all at the same time. So if I separate them, then I'll only look at one day and one another day. Like it's just jumping around all day long, from the t-shirt shop to the truck team administration to the benefit stuff to this guy has this problem. And it's always a lot. So, and then it's Parker after school, and he has a math tutor, so it's math. It's just now baseball just started, so it's pretty crazy. And then most people think they have a crazy week of work, and then they get the weekend off for a regroup and a breather. And then when the weekend comes, it's even more chaos. So,
isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just telling Mike that literally earlier today, because we're also looking, who isn't looking for help on the race car? And I'm like, honey, I don't know if there's people out there that want to work 7 days a week. Make it 8 days a week, like it is wild. So, okay, with that being said, I am curious, like, one, how do you keep your head above water? Maybe you're not, I don't know, right? But what's your secret? Do you have, Mike and I, we have a color coordinated calendar. So I don't know if we don't do this, but I could totally vision maybe you and Stu like sitting down on a Sunday night, like mapping out, okay, this is where I'm going to be. This is where you're going to be.
Yeah. We have, old school, we'll get like a big old calendar and we'll write it out so we can both see it at the same time. Like, this has to happen here. This has to happen here. Who's going to be there for this and who's going to be here for this, when there's two different things that are, at the same time. And then we have a calendar on the refrigerator for all of Parker's stuff, what he's got every week and what event he's got on what day and what day is his tutor. And so we keep Parker on the refrigerator, and then we keep our chaos like just scribbled everywhere because it always changes constantly. Yep. And then we have a note, like a shared note that with the truck team guys and like with Stuart that we all share. So when something changes, we see that too.
That's smart. That's smart. So that's Mike and I.
It's not very organized, but like I said, I feel like whenever we have a solid schedule and like this is how it's going to happen and it sounds so good and it's going to be so smooth, and it never works like that. And then it's just, we have to figure it out, and it's a regroup and something changes constant. So it's very hard to have a organized, smooth schedule.
Yeah. Like you said, toss in the weather, toss in a reschedule, toss in God knows what. So I'm curious. We don't have to like go too deep into it, but what has it been like? Like, how different has it been with Stu, racing trucks, like race day, schedules? I don't know. I don't even know where to ask a specific question.
So we thought that we like kind of had our life together a little bit, right? Like we'd started the business. We had good like sponsors. We had good race teams. So we started the business because we knew we wanted to start a family. So we thought like, okay, we built our house, we got married, we have Parker, and all of a sudden Chris Larson from Helmar comes along, and everything's just like poof, like this is just wasn't in the plan at all whatsoever. So it went from like, just doing dirt races, which is still a lot and still a lot of traveling, but we kind of had it under control. And obviously getting an opportunity like he's gotten with Helmar is like a once in a lifetime, and it's an amazing opportunity, and he's so fortunate to have this opportunity and to have Chris Larson behind him to support him and to support us. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm pregnant now, and bye, like you're gonna be gone from now till forever. Like it just felt like it was very hard in the beginning. Like, how is this gonna work? How are we, we have a baby, like we have the dirt team, we have our business. How is it gonna work? And at first it was just, a couple races, and then after he won at Eldora, then it kind of, really got Chris into it, and he really wanted to start doing it full time. And even year to year, even now, I obviously we're a little bit more stable as far as the schedule and the plan, but we never know exactly what's going to happen from year to year. Like, is the truck gonna happen again? Are we gonna go back to doing more of the dirt stuff and more focus on the dirt stuff? And it's so hard to, like, especially for Stuart to be all in on both. And he does a really good job of like, okay, I'm gonna remove my mindset from the truck stuff and go back to the dirt stuff. And then he has a bad race with the dirt stuff, and then it goes back to the truck. And I feel like sometimes it snowballs, and it's very hard to like totally reset. So we, so it is just, Parker was born, and so was Helmar and HFR at the same time. So Parker spent his entire life traveling, and we're just total chaos. We're going to truck races. It's been awesome to be able to incorporate like showing Parker the world and showing Parker different things while supporting Stuart and going to the races. And for a couple of years, it was tough because he wasn't an easy baby, and we had a lot of issues and a lot of communication issues and a lot of frustration that he had. So it was very hard to travel and to be in the car for long periods of time, or to be in the hauler for a long time, or to be on the airplane. And we tried as much as we could to always, to be with Stuart and to support him, but we stayed home a lot, and there was a lot of things that we learned from. Stuart used to say a lot of times that we can't intertwine vacations and racing, but all we do is race. So therefore we would never actually go do anything fun or see anything fun. So it would drive him crazy, and now he's used to it. But anytime we go to a racetrack, the first thing I'm doing is Googling, like, what can we do fun? Like, where can we go? What can we see? Like, we can't miss this. So we do see a lot of interesting things, and we, like, when Parker was littler, we'd go to every zoo and and now it's just like, if we can go see a show or we can go see a concert. Parker loves music. So always trying to incorporate and take full advantage of our situation and our, being so fortunate to be able to travel the country to do what we love, and to be able to support Stuart, and then also take Parker and show him around the world and let him see the world. And it's been hard with school, and so we run into that, and it's like, obviously school is very important and the structure is very important, and he's doing amazing, thankfully, so that we can take off a little bit of time to travel and to, be a part of Stuart's team and, support him and still keep up on school. So we're trying to still find that happy medium with that.
There's so much I could spin off of that. So much. Because I feel it's a season. I try and tell myself, like, in the craziness, I'm like, it's a season. It's not forever. But sometimes when you're a couple years in, you think, is this forever?
Yeah. I mean, and
like it's forever.
Off seasons feel like they get shorter and shorter. Like, is there an off season? Like, I mean, I don't think there is an off season. Like,
not anymore. No. Oh my God. Yeah. So that with Parker, especially school, I think it was this year, I saw you had posted on Facebook. I think it was when Stuart was he was leaving to go to Florida, right? He was going to the
Mhm.
races, I think, for like 2 or 3 weeks or
Yeah.
something. And I think it was a picture. If my memory serves me correctly, it was a picture of like Parker and Stewart maybe in your truck or something, and
Mhm.
that hit me, right?
Yeah.
That like gut punch, because people don't realize the sacrifices that you take as a family,
Yeah.
for especially as a wife too and a mom, for Sue to be racing full time, to be on the
Yeah.
road traveling more times than not, for you running your business, raising your son. I joke because I tell Mike all the time, I'm like, whenever we have a child, I'm like, it's like being a single mom, right?
It
So
is.
how hard is that though? When like you have to say bye, and he's going racing for like 2 weeks and you're not gonna see him, and you're home, and how do you
Yeah,
handle that?
so there's only a couple times a year where he's gone for more than 2 weeks at a time that we can't go or don't go. And it's tough. And you would think, like, as Parker gets older and kind of understands, like, that, dad's got to go racing, this is his job, this is what he does for a living, like, that it would get easier. But as he gets older and understands more, like, how many days it really is and, how many days he's going to have to go without seeing him, it gets harder. Like it's not getting easier. It gets harder. And he's like, wait, why can't we go? Like, why can't we go with them? I'm like, buddy, we have work and we have the shirt shop and then we have Graham and we have school, and it's hard because he gets like more so now than ever because he gets it. He understands how long 2 weeks is. And this year was probably the hardest when he left for Florida, and that Parker took it the hardest. Like, we drove him to the race shop and we're in the car and he kept saying, like, Dad, give me a hug. And like, that was the hardest because he's realizing, like, Dad's not going to be home every night. Like, Dad's not going to be home tomorrow. Dad's not. So that's like, a lot of people think like, oh, you guys have such a, a great lifestyle and a great life and you're so lucky and you're so, and it's like, people don't see that side of, like, Stuart doesn't get to go to Parker's baseball games. He doesn't get to go to his football games. He doesn't, when when he has to leave, he has to leave. He doesn't have a choice. And yeah, that's definitely tough. Luckily, we only have to do it a couple times a year, and we do our best. Like, we're very fortunate that we're in a situation where we can jump on an airplane and go meet him and go see him, and we don't have to go more than 2 weeks usually. So
Yeah.
other than school, not always loving that. I mean, my mentality is, obviously school is very important, and we've done so much in the last 8 years to get Parker up to speed and to where he is today, that obviously I don't want to ever regress that progress that he's made. But we have tutors and we make sure he keeps up on everything, and he always does his work, and we always take stuff with us, and we always get his work ahead of time. But it's hard. We do get a lot of slack from the school, only missing, I think he's missed only 9 days this year, and we started getting the letters from the school, Parker's missed 9 days, and it's like, yeah, he has. And then the letters start to turn into, like, they're going to send CPS to come do a home visit to see why he's not at school. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, really? And it's tough. So he's just in a regular public school, and we're trying our best to keep it that way and to keep his life as normal as possible and to keep him with his friends and his buddies, but also still balance, being able to travel and not be without his dad. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is. And thank you for sharing that, because there's so many times when I see you running around and then I see Parker and then you're not there, and it's just, I always wonder, I just always wonder. I worry about you too, trust me.
Yeah,
I worry.
usually it's either because of school or it's because of the shirt shop and I have deadlines, or or I couldn't get any aides to help with Graham, so it's like it's a lot, and there is a lot. And I think sometimes even Stuart, like, he gets caught up in, like, well, I have to do this and you guys are coming. I'm like, wait, we can't just pick up and go. Like, we have to plan our outings and our schedule way ahead of time, because there's a lot of things that need to be handled first.
Yeah. So, okay, we haven't talked about the shirt shop yet. How did that come about?
So, I'll just say that we were dealing with a t-shirt company when we were both racing, and I was racing sprint cars, and Stuart was racing modifieds, and we were doing really well with selling our merchandise. And we would go through a couple thousand shirts a year, and I knew that we were doing well on selling our stuff, and I had an issue with the company we were dealing with selling our shirts and us not getting a cut of what was agreed to.
Don't miss out. Get insider-only updates and exclusive content inside Club DTU. Receive access to live updates, exclusive content, early access, special merchandise, discounts, community chat, recognition, and more. All inside one place. Club DTU. Head over to patreon.com/dirttrackuntold to join the club.
And I'm like, whoa, like, people would come over after the races to have us sign stuff, and then at the end of the night, the merchandise company would say, we didn't sell any of your stuff. What do you mean? We don't have any money for you. So I get very stubborn, and I'm like, well, this isn't gonna fly. So that was happening, and we switched companies, and it's, but then when we decided that we wanted to start a family or try to start a family, I knew that I was going to need a better backup plan as far as income. I wasn't going to be able to race full time. I wasn't going to be able to travel as much. So how hard can it be? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to print t-shirts. Well, I had no idea what I was getting into at all whatsoever. I never anticipated it was going to be what it is and as much work as it is. I went to a screen printing seminar in New York City for 4 days. And I was the only person there that didn't know anything about printing t-shirts, didn't already have an established business, had never printed a t-shirt in my life, no idea. I thought oh, you get the artwork, you push a button, and it just comes out. Or you can get a direct-to-garment printer and you're just gonna print the shirt. Well, turns out direct-to-garment printers would cost $16 a shirt to make one shirt. So we weren't gonna make any profit on that. So I had to learn screen printing. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube and a lot of trial and error getting the business started. So we started the screen printing shop in 2014. It was about a year before Parker was born. So we had a little bit of bearings on it, but still every day I learned something new, and it is a ton of work, and it's a learning curve every day. But it's fun. It's you start from nothing, and at the end you have a t-shirt. So it's interesting. It's different every day. It's different prints and different techniques and different things that I learn all the time. So it keeps it interesting. It's not boring. It's a lot of work. Wish I had about 4 more employees, but we'll get there. So we're kind of at the point of our business where it's exploding at the seams where it is, and it's very successful. It's doing very well, and we have a lot of great customers. But it's still at our house. It's at our shop on the other side of our driveway, so it's close to home, which is great for Parker, but not great for getting more employees, and not great for getting more power, because we've reached our power max to that building. We live in the middle of nowhere, so we really need to think about expanding and relocating. But then with that comes a whole new more employees, and renting a space or buying a bigger space, and just being even more full-time than it already is. And then we would never be able to travel with Stuart and go do the truck stuff. And so we're kind of I just try to do as much as I can and try to keep up. And it's hard sometimes that I always make sure that I keep a deadline if somebody has a deadline, but it's a lot. It's just myself and 1 employee. So
are you serious? There's just 2 of you?
Yeah, there's just 2 of us. So yeah, and it's crazy. We have a couple retired ladies from down the road. When we get big orders and we need to fold and box, we're like, hey, Nancy and Betty, are you guys free today? So we got some t-shirts to fold. So it's a very small business, but we do a lot of turnaround, and so we're kind of the shirt shop is kind of the backup ride for after racing, but it's doing really well, and we need to keep it going. And sometimes Stuart will say well, you don't need to stay home and print t-shirts. Why don't you just come racing? I'm like, no, you don't just start and stop a business. built it to what it is, and now people have expectations and they need stuff done and they need stuff turned around, and then trying to keep up on the truck team stuff and all that administration, and like balancing how many hours I spend a day on the truck team and then how many hours a day that I'm printing shirts to make sure that at the end of the week all the deadlines are met. And yeah, so
The
that's
dumpster fire. I get it.
Yes, it is.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's that is one thing, like, I mean, amazing, of course, that you guys picked up on, like, having that. I don't want to call your t-shirt business a plan B, but building it to what it is, because like there's so many times when my dad, he will always be like, you don't want to end up like that one driver who really should have retired and is living out of a shoebox right now. I'm like,
yeah. Right.
no, I
Yes.
don't.
And when we started the business, we thought like for the initial investment, like what we were going to invest in it, and knowing like how many t-shirts we sold ourselves when we were racing, and we figured it was going to take us about 6 years to pay off our initial investment. And it took us 4. And then at 4 years, we upgraded the machine and got another payment and a bigger press to be able to print more t-shirts. And when we first started the business was before Stuart started racing the truck. And we did it together, like when we first started. And I can't count on one hand how many times Stuart has participated in the shirt shop in the last 8 years. But when something goes wrong, like there's issues sometimes with like sensors and stuff that need to be replaced, like he comes in and he knows it's the backup plan, and he knows he still has to participate when necessary.
Okay, so prior to us starting this recording, Jess and I were totally comparing to the many traits that as race wives, well, you are a racer also, but with them being gone, the things that we have to learn around the house and teach ourselves, it's impressive. I told my dad the other day, I was like, by the time we've owned this house for a year and a half, by the time that Mike even will be able to put anything into this house, like physical labor, I'm gonna know how to build my own house.
Right. Yeah, YouTube teaches everything. Have to
Yes.
YouTube everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. Bless YouTube. Now I understand why everyone's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, okay, shifting gears a little bit here is, what is it like? Because I'm super intrigued for you, is what is it like always being in the spotlight? Because I feel just every time I see you, I said this to you the other day, you're always smiling, you've got yourself put together. I don't know how you do it. It's very impressive. But how?
I have to try hard to be put together. It doesn't come easy. But I don't know. I don't know that about like, and when you say like the spotlight stuff, I guess we don't really think of it that way. And with Parker, noticing like how he is with people and his different, he's just kind of getting evened out to not growling at people or like being consistent, being nice and just, like, this is what we do. This is like, we're fortunate enough to do this for a living. And this is our, these are the people around us, are the people that, make it happen. And, we need to be nice to everyone, and we need to, appreciate the situation that we're in, and just take it all in, and to be kind. And, I want, my son to see, that, you treat people how you want to be treated, and you put off what you want to get back. So sometimes, we have bad days, or, we drove all night and are tired and cranky, and we drove from Martinsville, which was a really bad truck race, to Grandview, and got in the pits, and Parker was tired and Stuart was tired and miserable because he had a bad day. And like sometimes it's just like, and there's fans and people there that like Stuart doesn't race there a lot, that want to see him or have him sign stuff, and it's just like, you gotta like just not take for granted, like you wouldn't be who you are, like you wouldn't be like, these people are here to support you, and they're your fans, and they don't know that you just drove all night, and that they probably don't know you had a terrible night last night and just we didn't get any sleep, and you have to smile and be kind, so.
I always say, always have to put on my face.
Yeah.
Always put on my face. So, okay. I always love asking this question. Just, I feel some answers are aligned, some are different, but I always say is that the higher you get in life, the more spotlight comes the negativity, right? So I feel like you're pretty optimistic, but there are the negative side of racing. So I always like to say, like, the social media boobs that live in their mom's basement that want to tell us, like, how to live our life.
Yeah.
How do you to handle that?
I feel like I used to maybe let it bother me or like feed into it, like, why would people say those things, or why would they think that, or and I've gotten really thick-skinned and learned that it really doesn't matter what those people think or say. I know that, like, Stuart has a little bit of, it's hard with the truck stuff, and when he, like, he had a few disputes and issues this year, like, and of course it's got to be all over social media, and, like, that frustrates him, and I'm like, why would you even let it bother you? Like, we have our team, we have our people, we have, you have your fans, you have your supporters, like, who cares what the haters say or what they think? Like, just don't feed into it. They're gonna say it no matter what, and if they're talking about you, like, at least they're talking about you. It doesn't matter if it's not good. Like, just shake it off, So I definitely could say that it used to bother me a lot more, like, when I first started getting into racing and realizing that people are mean. Like, So it definitely used to bother me a lot more, but I've thickened up a lot and just shook it off. So I'm still trying to toughen Stuart up sometimes on that. Like, why? Like, don't pay attention. Yeah.
That is so funny. I always say is racing aged me fast.
Yeah.
Right? So it's funny you kind of mentioned that, because it was like the other day, Mike calls me, because again, I'm in Jersey, he's in New York, we're living our different lives. He calls me and he was kind of like, hey, I have a question. Did you see this video? And I'm like, okay, honey, be a little bit more descriptive here. And he's like, well, someone sent me a video of people made of you, and I just don't understand it. Can you look at it? And I'm like, is it bad? And he goes, I don't think so. But then I'm like, okay, well, listen, Mike, like, I love you, but I'm gonna tell you this once, and I'm gonna tell you last time is, I don't care. I don't want to know. Unless I literally hurt someone's feelings,
right.
I will not waste my energy on people who are just looking for my attention. And he literally was like, this is why I love you. And I'm like, this is why you need to get off social media.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. Like I said, the more, from modified to sprint cars, like NASCAR, like, people deal with it all the time, and it's something that, I don't know, that people need to work on.
Yeah. People are mean.
I guess.
Yeah. They are. Yeah. So,
okay. If we were to go back in time, we're going to say like 15, 20 years ago, ask, like, you're 15, let's say you're 15, right, Jess? Did you ever envision, like, when you were 15 years old, being where you are, doing what you're doing now?
Definitely not. Stuart and I will say that a lot of times, like, when we're leaving our house in our motorhome to go to a race, and it's like, we have our dogs, we have Parker, we have our motorhome, we have all of our stuff, we're getting to go make a living doing what we love to do, and on the way we're going to get to stop at two really cool places too. Like, who would have thought, like, we could ever, like, have this lifestyle and be able to make a living at racing? I mean, obviously growing up, all we ever wanted to do was race, and we'll joke about, Stuart's Corsica that he picked me up in, and then his next car was a Ford Tempo, and, like, we'll joke, like, it wasn't always easy. Like, we were scraping up pennies for apartments, and he was living in a camper at Madsen's campground when we were dating, and I had an apartment in Troy that I couldn't afford while I was going to college, and there's just it definitely didn't come easy, and there's so many things that we can look back on now and kind of laugh and say, like, wow, like, remember that, or remember when we did that, or like we snuck in here because we couldn't afford it, or like, there's just a lot of things like, remember that race team that we drove for, remember driving to this race, and we didn't even have gas money to get there, and we were hoping that we finished in the top 10, because if we didn't finish in the top 10, like, we didn't even know how we were going to get home. Like, we were young, and we did a lot of stupid things, and we we're trying so hard to make it at this, and to make this our living, and to be able to say like what we've been able to do and what we've been able to accomplish. And since we've gotten together and since we got married, and like, I feel like we've made a pretty good team, and we've built a lot together. So it's pretty cool to look back on it, where we started and where we are now, and to think like we never would have imagined. Stuart went to school, and he's like, what would have happened if I didn't get that ride with the Madsons and come to New York for that summer to race at Utica Rome? Like, life would have been so different, because what if I would have stayed in Canada and I wasn't in New York, and we wouldn't have met? And like, just crazy how different things could have been, and like how they turned out, and where we are now. So it's pretty cool.
And it's an amazing story. There's going to be a book. I'm just going to say it right here, right now. There has to be a book, okay?
We have
I need
some
the
crazy
timeline.
stories.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
listen, there's, like, my dad, was it last year, 2 years ago, they came out in my dad's book, and I was like, we need to come out with part 2 with the stuff that you didn't put in.
Right.
The stories that were not told. Yes.
Yeah. The fun stories, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I always like to, close out my episode with some wise words, some fun tips, whatever have you. It was hard for me to pick just one with you, because I feel like we could keep this conversation going. But I'll ask you this, is for the women out there, right, this is going to be for our women, for the women out there who want to go out there, chase after their dreams, be a race car driver, do whatever it takes like you, what sort of tips would you give them? Would you offer them? Would you say do, don't do?
I mean, it's very hard to say don't do, because I feel like you never know what an opportunity might lead to, or what a chance that you take might lead to. Like I said, I had some crazy jobs and lived in different places and tried everything I could to race, and those relationships built, and friendships and networking just kept building and building. And it's just all about having goals and working hard, and surrounding yourself with good people. That's very important. And just not putting yourself in a situation that's not a good situation. There was a lot of cars that I probably should have never gotten into that I did, and I've had some pretty good wrecks because of it, and some concussions that I probably didn't need to have. But I really think just working hard and setting goals, and just surrounding yourself with good people, and not giving up and not getting discouraged. I like when you mentioned like social media and people being nasty and being mean, like obviously there was a lot of negativity when I first started and when I was young, and it used to bother me a lot, but I kind of turned that negativity into more drive for myself. Like I said, like, if somebody says that I can't do it, or I'm not going to be good at it, or I'm not going to do it, well, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to figure it out. And I've always kind of used the negativity. I do that still today in my life with everything I do, just to be more positive and try to turn that into something positive, and to work harder.
It fuels you. I love that.
Yeah. It does.
Spot on.
And it's funny, like Stuart and I will get in like arguments. He's like, "You're so mean." I'm like, "I like being mean," but I don't. But he'll just be like, "You're so mean." I'm like, "Yeah, but you got me going. Like you just got me going about this, and now I have to prove you wrong." And now, so I feel like that's like part of our competitiveness, and that's part of the competitiveness in myself, and what makes our relationship fun. It's tough. Obviously, there's so much, and it's not easy every day, and we just, at the end of the day, we're both going in the same direction and working towards the same goals. So
you're a power team.
Yes.
I love it. Well, you guys are making it work. That's all that matters. You're making it work, and I'm in awe. So Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down, your crazy busy life, to record with us. It was an absolute pleasure and so eye-opening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Cool. Thanks.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this just as much as I did. And if you did, please share it on social media. Tag us, tag me, tag Jess. Give our girl some extra love. Go buy her merch at the races. Get your merch made. Buy onesie, tees, whatever have you. Or, when you see her at the races, just tell her she's doing a hell of a job. She's doing a hell of a job. So thank you guys. We will catch you right back here next week.